Yes, I, brothers and sisters, lovers, haters, friends and neighbours, ladies and gentlemen, boys, girls and vibrations. I hope everyone's well. I hope everyone's had a nice day. I'm sending love, light and blessings to you all. See, I started saying that, brothers, sisters, lovers, haters, about 4 years ago when I started this channel. I thought it was something catchy to say at the start of a video. I adopted it and I adapted it from my favourite comedian, Bill Hicks. He used to say it, first thing he used to say when he come on stage. You know, what a human being he was. And when I started this channel, I said to myself that I was going to teach myself, if you like, to speak properly. I always had a decent vocabulary and I was always fluent in speech, but I was very chava-mush. You know, I wasn't very polite. I was ignorant and quite aggressive in my speech, and I wasn't very polite, like I said, and I swore a lot. You know, so I told myself I would speak differently and I would try and speak as properly as I could to try and appeal to a wider audience. And I'm very pleased this channel has done quite well, and we've just hit 40,000 subscribers, and I dip my toe in and I come out of this channel, you know, and it's not my life, but we have certain topics we like to discuss, and of late this channel has taken a turn for the serious. Given the mood of the people in this once proud nation, you know, we're in a crisis. I go as far to say the country's on its knees. Now, we've had our fearless leader address the public again, you know, in his infinite wisdom, taking money from our granddads and grandparents and nanas and granddads isn't enough, you know. He's got to come on and further infuriate the already enraged British public. As I've just said before on a live with Anne, you know, I'm somewhere in between one of two things. I either think this divvy is purposely, intentionally noising up the British public, like purposely. It's either that or common sense is a flower that does not grow in his garden. And it's either one of the other, it could be both. But why isn't the main issue being addressed? You know, unvetted immigration is the main issue. It's the fundamental reason why the British public are so angry. And, you know, to be constantly labelled far right and, you know, for our fearless leader to come on and say his protection priority is Muslims, the Muslim community in the mosques. Well, I'm all for protecting all communities. Like, why don't Christian communities get a mention? You know, now, I, for one, have a deep understanding for why the public, the British citizens, are so angry. And it's like the British people have been tailored slowly over decades and decades to be incredibly tolerant. You know, and they will receive a royal shafting every day of the week, and they won't say anything about it. You know, that they won't say anything, you know, and if there isn't any lube, then they'll just get on with it, you know, because that's the way we've been made to be. Now, if you, as a British citizen, you know, an incredibly tolerant, often hard-working, understanding, tax-paying British citizen. Now, if you're not happy with unvetted immigration and you have somewhat of an issue with that, and you dare to open your mouth about it, you are far right. It seems like the term far right's been totally reassigned to a completely different culture of people that are not far right, but will be labelled it because it's a damaging term. Now, for whatever reason, this whole thing seems to have turned into a religious war. You know, it's like us versus them. Well, it's never the way I've looked at this situation. You know, it's never the way I've interpreted it. You know, I'm not anti any specific religion whatsoever. To me, it's never mattered. You know, it's just never mattered. I call a divvy. Why? Because they're a divvy. Now to do with their ethnicity or the religion. Anyways, I'm about as English as I am a monkey, right? My dad's a Paddy from Shannon. My mum's a Jock from Annan, right? I've got Celtic blood. I've just lived in England and I love the country. You know, I love the place. I also love Ireland. I love Wales and I love Scotland. And I'm also aware that we have collectively haven't been the best neighbours to each other over the decades. You know, it's not like we're offering each other a cup of brown sugar. It's like we don't help each other up. We don't pat each other on the back. And if we get a chance, we'll kick each other when they're down. You know, that's just how it is. There's always been a big divide between those four nations. And, you know, if you're Welsh, you think your country's the best. If you're Irish, you think yours is the best. If you're English, you think yours is the best. And if you're Scottish, guess what? You know, you think yours is the best. Well, I see myself as from all of those places. You know, this is a United Kingdom problem. And what I would love to see is the kingdom unite. My English family, my Scottish family, my Welsh family. I don't have any Welsh family. I don't think. I might have, but I've got a lot of friends down there. An awful lot of good people down there. So I'm going to call them family, right? If there was ever a time for these four nations to come together, it was now. Now, the looters, the rioters, listen, that's a subsection of people. A minority of the minority. They do not represent the message that I'm trying to get across. They're not a representation of me. They're simply not. But as well, you've got to have an understanding. There's always going to be a certain type of people that will go out and loot and riot. Look at the poverty. Look at the addiction throughout British communities. You know, people are always going to take a chance to make a £5 note as and when they can. But as I've said, they are not a representation of the message that I'm trying to get across, of the movement that is being attempted to be created in this country. You see, the more violence that we have, the more looting that we have, not only are we falling into the narrative of the government and we're all going to be labelled far right, but the message that we're trying to have heard, our voice is going to vanish into the wind like a fart. Simple as that. So what we need to do is be highly organised. I was going to organise a march, rally, protest, whatever you want to call it, in Carlisle. And I think we'd do great numbers because the Cumbrian people are extremely patriotic. You know, and we're always flying the English flag everywhere. There's always England flags everywhere in Cumbria. Maybe because you can throw a stone from my house and it'll land in Scotland. So it's like a middle finger to those over the border. Those over the border being my people, you know, where my mum's from, like my blood. But it's just the way it is. The Cumbrian people are extremely patriotic and they're good people. And Cumbria is one of the last untouched places in the entirety of the UK, right? It's a beautiful place. And I would have loved those people to come together on this one. But I've got to understand the anger that's brewing inside the people. You know, and trying to ask 5, 10, 20, 30,000 people at a protest or any gathering whatsoever to remain calm at a time like this is a very tall order indeed. Now, I'm glad and I thank God every day that I'm not the person I was 5 years ago, because I was lost. I was in the midst of active addiction and I was a violence enthusiast. Okay. Now, just because I've changed views, you know, I've changed a lot of things. I've changed house, job, surroundings. I've changed direction. I've changed morality. You know, it doesn't mean I've changed what's the knowledge inside of what's right and wrong. You know, everybody knows the difference between right and wrong. We all have goodness within us, and that goodness gives us a responsibility to stand up for what's right. You see, as I've said before, the British people are incredibly tolerant, and they'll tolerate all manner of stuff that, you know, that the average nation would not tolerate. But when you start flooding the country with unvetted migrants and posing an immediate threat to their children, then you're gonna get a real reaction that you were probably expecting, but you're gonna paint it like you weren't expecting it, and you don't like it. Well, how about addressing the actual issue, of unvetted immigration endangering the streets that we live, and posing a direct threat to our children, so as far as anger goes, I certainly understand. I don't sympathise with any rioters, any looters at all. But I've got an understanding of why the people are so angry. All the bullshit they've been blindsided with by the media. The clear, abundantly clear and blatantly obvious two-tier policing. People aren't happy with it. Anyways, I'm going for my tea. 11 minutes. Boom. God bless everyone. Bye-bye for now.